I recently worked on a project where I needed to recreate a surface similar to what we see here on the Spider-Man outfit from the movies. I'm mainly referring to the webbing that you see here in the image. Now, I needed to recreate that, but I couldn't afford more geometry. I had to keep the polygon count down on the object and still come up with something that I could control different surface attributes on the surface. So what I thought I would do is share the results. Here I've got a basic object, a little basic character, and I want to have that kind of webbing all over the surface of this suit. But I don't want to add any geometry. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and go to 4 windows, and I'm going to take advantage of a UV map in order to pull this off. But I'm going to do a really quick and dirty UV map, which will actually make it much easier to create this surface. I'm going to go ahead and switch the top view here to UV texture, and let's go ahead and create a UV texture. I'm going to put all of the geometry in this mesh, so I'm going to go ahead and select the entire mesh. I'm going to put all of that into this one UV map. To do that, and again it's going to be a quick and dirty map, I'm going to go over to the Map tab, and under the Texture subheading and Poly Map, I'm going to choose New Quad Polygon Map. What this is going to do is allow me to name it, and I'm just going to call this Quads. That'll work. And I'm going to leave the image orientation to 0. I can rotate it 90, 180, 270, and I'm not going to choose the reverse order. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And what it did, it looks like it's just one polygon there. Let me go ahead and deselect. If I were to zoom in and grab this polygon, you'll see that it's taking up the entire UV map. If I grab this one, same thing. If I click this, we'll see that it selects every polygon on the character. So every single polygon shares the exact same UV coordinates, and we'll take advantage of that later when we're doing our surfacing. I'm going to go ahead and save this object out, and let's go ahead and send it over to Layout. So here we are in Layout, and I'm going to go ahead and open up an instance of F prime just so that we can get instant feedback of our surface. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Let's just focus on one area. And I see a little bit of faceting, so I'm going to hop over to Object, Properties, and change my Display Subpatch level. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 6. And we can see that now it's nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and open up the Surface Editor. And I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of the Edit Nodes. That's where I do most of my surfacing now. And just pop over to this window. I can go ahead and close my Surface Editor. And I'm going to make room for our F prime window so that we can see what's going on. I'm going to start with adding a 2D texture. Let's do Image, because I want to apply an image to our object. Double click for the properties. For image, right now I'm going to choose, just so you can see what's really happening, I'm going to choose this picture of my 2 dogs, Jack and May, and let's apply it with a UV map. So Mapping, UV Map. Let's choose the UV map that we created, which is Quads, and let's go ahead and plug that in. So I'm going to take this node, plug it into the color channel, and we'll see that everywhere that there's a polygon, everywhere that we had a polygon mapped to that UV surface, we see this image. Okay, I'm going to replace that image with a simple image of a black outline around a white box. And as you can see, we're getting basically what looks like a wireframe display right here of our object. So this is also one way that you can get a subpatch wireframe in your render just by using a simple image here. But we could always just render edges for that. So I would rather show how we can dress this up. Let's go back to the node editor, and I'm going to pull that off of the color. We might go back and use that again if we want, but I'm going to plug the bump into the bump channel. And what I get is an indentation where these lines are. So for every polygon, it's displaying just this black line, which in this case, black being a low value, it lowers it in the bump, where white is raised. White would be like 100%, black would be like 0. So if I want it to be more like well, let's take a look. If I want it to be more like this, it looks like the webbing is raised higher. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll pop back over to my image properties, and for bump amplitude, let's just type in -200. And now it's raised instead of being lowered. Okay. So I don't have to stop there though. This is just for the bump. But if this is the webbing, let's go back, because I just had a thought. If we go with the default, well, we could use a surface like this. Say we were recreating Pinhead from Hellraiser, and we wanted those creases in the face. Well, this is one way that we could do it. If we want the webbing, let's go ahead and put a negative value, and now we've got this raised. I'm going to go ahead and dress this up a little bit. What if we were to plug, let's use the same node, and what if we were to plug that into, say, specularity? As you can see, where it's white, we have a higher value because specularity is looking for a scalar value. So it's looking for 0 to 1 or black to white being high. So the white areas here are getting more specularity. And the black areas aren't getting any spec at all. Well, I want the exact opposite of that. I'd rather have these lines here, I'd rather have those have specularity and the base suit have no specularity. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to Add Node right here, and let's go over to Math, Scalar, and let's choose Invert. And I'm going to plug the color into the in, and for the out, let's plug that into specular. So as you can see, I get a spec hit. I'm getting specularity here on the webbing, but I'm not getting it on the base suit. We can take it a step further. Let's plug color into reflection, and now I'm getting the suit is reflecting, but the webbing isn't. Actually, you know what? I think it would probably look better if we plugged from the invert into reflection. And so now we're getting something similar to what we were initially trying to get, where we've got this reflective webbing over the suit. Well, if I come back over here, let me zoom out, we can start to see we're getting that pattern. Now, if we want a different pattern on there, well, we could change our polyflow back in Modeler, and that would change the result of what we're getting here. Because this is all surface driven, we can go in and put any kind of texture we want on the base here and not have it affect what's going on our trim. So let's zoom back in. Okay. So again, we've got our trim, we've got some specularity, we've got some reflection, we got some bump going on, and of course you don't have to use all of these attributes. You can use whatever attributes work for the surface that you're going for. Okay. But if we wanted to create a different pattern on here, let's just go and take a look. 3D textures. Let's try something like dots maybe, or well, let's just do turbulence. That's a useful one that I use all the time. I'm going to just shrink down the texture, and let's just plug that right into color. Okay, and I'm going to shrink it down even more. I just want to be able to see a dramatic change. So there we go. And let's bump that contrast up a little bit. Let's do 50%. Okay, and what I can see here is that the pattern is actually carrying over our webbing. I don't want that. I want to be able to control what the surface attributes are for each. So let's take a look at how we can change that. I'm going to let's take the image here and let's plug that into opacity. Okay, And so the opacity of this surface is being controlled by this image. So I'm saying where it's white, I want to see it, so I'm seeing it here. And where it's black, I don't want to see it. So by plugging this into the opacity, we get the pattern that we want on the base suit here, and then we're keeping this nice and clean because it's a different surface. It's supposed to be a different material from our base mesh. So there you have it. This is a quick way of going in and giving our suit this webbing, this trim, without having to model the geometry. I'm going to go ahead and unplug this just so that the last look we get of this, we can really see the webbing. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully this is helpful. It was a really quick way for me to get the results that I wanted and saved me a lot of polygons that I would normally have to use to get this kind of webbing.